Merry Christmas, podcast fam. Oh, do we have a show for you guys today. Back at episode 100, we said that every 10 episodes we were going to do a mastermind topic focused episode. That's right, a roundtable discussion full of amazing people right here in our Gainesville community. Today, Dan Drodos of GNV Advisors from Colliers International, Matt Lang of Lang Jewelers, Mary Mealy of Independent Studio, and our very own podcast team member, UF business student Sarah Lentz, joins us as we discuss the impact of COVID-19 on our business and student communities. It's been a crazy 2020, and COVID-19 has impacted so many in a negative and in some cases positive ways. And how did these businesses hold up? Who's been faring well and who hasn't? What's the state of Gainesville look like as we head into 2021? Find out in the last Mastermind episode of 2020. Enjoy the show. You are listening to WHOA Podcast, coming to you from Gainesville, Florida. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WHOA GNV Podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. I am your host, Collin, and my co-host is Michael Dees.
What's up, man?
What's going on, man?
This is like episode 130.
Can you believe it? We're getting ready to go into season 4, dude.
That's wild. Did you think when you started this that you'd be doing 4 seasons?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, we're going to be doing this forever. Of course I did.
And we're sticking true to the promise we made at episode 100 that every 10 episodes we do a mastermind.
Exactly. And I'm excited that we're doing one today. We're going to do it on the subject matter of COVID-19, which has been the topic of 2020, in addition to politics, in addition to everything. Right. It's been lots of topics this year, but COVID-19 has definitely been at the top of the list. So I'm excited to dive into it. But you know, it's all this is going out the week of Christmas. So Merry Christmas to everybody.
Christmas, happy holidays to everybody.
Has an amazing holiday season and spending time with those loved ones. It's always the best, man. I love this time of year.
Yeah, it's nice.
And you know, this year because of Thanksgiving and how far Thanksgiving was, like, because it was Thanksgiving.
How far along in November? Yeah.
So everybody's getting their Christmas stuff up before Thanksgiving, which I almost like. I know you're like, no, let's have one holiday at a time.
Yeah, one
here.
holiday at a time. Like, but Black Friday, I bought my Christmas tree, which is rare. I've never bought a Christmas tree in November before, but this year I think I was just ready to get along with everything, and everybody. I mean, I was driving around and everybody's got Christmas trees on the top of their trucks and everything. It was like it was the only day to do it.
So you have a live Christmas tree?
Yeah, I get a live one every year.
Okay, and you can keep it alive? I've been trying to get Shannon
water.
Okay.
Turns out.
Just so you guys know, I've been trying to get Shannon to like let us get a live Christmas tree, and she's like, no, not having it.
There was one year I actually had my Christmas tree up until March.
Okay. I think she's worried.
My live one.
I think she's worried that it's going to be like more work for her. Can I keep a Christmas tree alive till March?
The question is, can Shannon keep a Christmas tree alive until March? Because you're right, it is going to be more work for her.
that's the real reason why she doesn't want it. Yeah. Well, anyway, Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas. I'm excited to get into today's episode, but before we do, podcast fam, we got to remind you guys that this show has been made possible all year long by all the sponsors that supported us through 2020. One of which is in the studio with us today, Dan Drodos, GNV Commercial Advisors at Colliers International. Dude, thanks so much for supporting our show,
Absolutely.
man.
Yeah, the man.
Glad to be here.
How many times did we say their name?
A lot. Oh my gosh.
I'm like, thanks to Dan. Colliers
like so International.
Yeah. So, dude, thank you so much. Absolutely. We also want to give a shout out to everybody else this year. I'm gonna name everybody. Darshak Insurance, Crime Prevention Security Systems, Advantage Personnel Resources, The Rap Spot, Realtor Andy Malden, who brings the good stuff.
Sponsored the bar.
Sponsored the bar too. Yeah. Brooker Pest Control, Gainesville Harley Davidson, Matt Houchins of Houchins SEO Consulting, Leonardo's Pizza Millhopper, and The Best Restoration. I can't say enough how grateful I am to all these companies that have supported us this year. You guys, they make this happen. Please support them, support their businesses. You can find their information by going to whoagnv.com/sponsors. And we have the links that go directly to their websites. Go find them, connect with these incredible businesses. We're so grateful for them. And I'd like to give a huge shout out and thank you to Scott and April Schroeder over at the Business Report as well. They highlighted, it was kind of like a surprise to all the guests too, because they didn't really know it was happening, but they did our articles on the Business Report, and they would summarize what happened on the show and highlight the business. It was like another piece of extra content and exposure for these incredible businesses here in Gainesville, and kind of summarize what happened on the podcast, and it was absolutely wonderful. So just super grateful to them. And last but certainly not least, we want to give so much love to all of you guys that are listening to the show, sharing the show, doing business with the guests who are featured. I mean, it makes me feel so good every time.
Love that, right?
Yeah, just having recently with Vessel Goods with Seth.
Yeah.
Like I got a text and was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that business existed, but I just bought a leather wallet for my brother.
That's fantastic.
That was my friend Josh Bush, and I was like, dude, that's amazing. Thank you so much for telling me that. So it's so great when we find out that you're supporting the guests who are on the show, buying swag on our online shop, and sending money via Venmo during the COVID mess. That was fantastic. So you guys supported us in so many incredible ways. You guys, thank you so much. And I'm just thankful to God for this opportunity to really have this kind of impact on this community. It's been so cool to hear the stories. I hope that we can continue to highlight the incredible businesses that are here in Gainesville and that are doing so much. It's just been awesome, man. What's it been for you?
No, absolutely. And as you were reading that list of sponsors, I mean, it's quite a who's who of businesses and individuals in Gainesville, and a lot of people that we have featured on this podcast. And so definitely go back and check out their stories as well, and you can probably get a lot of insight into how their businesses came about and what they do. But yeah, to echo all that, just thanks to everybody. And this time of year especially, it's important to look back and give thanks. And I think everybody is a little COVID exhausted. We're going to get them COVID exhausted one more time today, just kind of going into things a little bit deeper. But it's also ever changing, so I think it's important to keep talking about it. But definitely, I mean, thanks to the sponsors, thanks for everybody that supported us and given us a chance to keep doing this, because I know you love it, I love it. It's fun to be able to have this kind of impact and to keep doing it, and we couldn't do it without all of you. So.
Yep. So a heartfelt thank you to all of you guys that are listening, and man, I'm excited. Season 4, baby, 2021. It's almost here.
That's right.
Okay, you guys ready to do this or what? They're like staring at us like, this guy's gonna talk forever, or are we gonna get into this thing? I'm like, let's go. You guys, today on the show we have 4 incredible businesses. Well, 3 incredible businesses and 1 incredible student in the house today. Gonna bring all perspectives on COVID-19, and I'm gonna let them go around the room and introduce themselves and their businesses and who they are. So actually, Sarah, you go first, being our student. So you guys, I got to brag real quick. Got to brag on Sarah. Sarah has been incredible to the show this entire season. I could not do this without her. So she makes this happen.
It's really because of the cookies.
Yeah, and she brings cookies, today. Like all these bonuses. But she has really made this happen. Help me out with just getting stuff scheduled and really, participating in that bridge. One huge mission of this podcast is to really connect students to businesses, and we want to attract and keep a lot of our top 6 talent here, right? And so she's been a key part of that for us, and just really been a huge help with the show. So I asked her to be on tonight's show, being that it's one of the final shows of 2020, and to bring that student perspective on COVID-19. So I know I just kind of introduced her, but I'm going to let her introduce herself now.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Sarah. I was actually born and raised here in Gainesville. I'm a sophomore at the University of Florida studying marketing. So it's a little bit about me.
Thanks for being here.
All right. Well, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. I can't leave it out because my wife's Jewish and she'd kill me. And awesome. My name is Matt Lang, and along with my wife, Stacy, we own and operate Lang Jewelers in the Tioga Town Center.
Awesome.
And I'm Mary Mealy, and I own Independent Studio here in Gainesville, Florida, 12 years strong. It's a performing arts studio for babies all the way through adults.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Dan Drodos. I'm the Senior Director of Colliers International here in Gainesville. We're a commercial brokerage and advisory practice group here locally. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And if it isn't leased by the time this episode comes out, I have a 607 Northwest 13th Street. Dan's leasing it for us, and we're trying to get it out there. So we've had
on.
Yeah, we've had this building. Well, that's good. I get to do that, right? But we've had this building that we just haven't really been making use of, and so we're like, yeah, like let's get it listed. So
if nothing else, it'll be a part-time dance studio, jeweler, and study space. So
there you go.
Real estate office.
right, exactly.
So you guys, again, like we're focused on COVID-19. This has been like the craziest thing that's ever happened to me as an entrepreneur, and really that I can remember in my entire life. I mean, has there been anything crazier? I mean, the only other thing I can recall is like 9/11 was super impactful as like this, monumental thing. But
yeah, the economic recession in 2008 is another thing that comes to mind, but that's really the short list.
Yeah. So, for you guys, like, how has COVID-19 impacted you or your business? So, Sarah, why don't you start? Give us like the student perspective.
Yeah, so I think it was February, right before spring break. My current roommate and I, we had like planned a big thing, not Thanksgiving, spring break trip, and we went down to the beach. We knew it was like a thing, like it was happening overseas, and I got back from spring break and I came home for 3 days, and all of a sudden I was completely online and my whole world was flipped upside down. For me, social interaction is huge. Like, I thrive off of being around people. And so when this happened, I was kind of in denial and like, oh, it'll go away in just a week. But that's not the case. All of my classes are still online. But looking ahead into the spring, I am thankful to have 2 in-person classes, of course socially distanced, but that's been a big blessing for me. Being a student, I feel like I'm missing out a little bit on the actual college experience, and I'm not getting that full experience. But I've made the most of it, made a bunch of friends over Zoom, so it's kind of weird to like know so much about someone but never have actually met them in person before. Like one of my friends in my sales management class, like I would call her like one of my closest friends now, and I have never met her in person.
Oh my gosh, that's so weird.
It's like a modern day pen pal.
It's really weird, but it's just little things like that and getting used to the new normal. Zoom fatigue is real, but we live through it, so that it's just a little bit. We'll get through it.
In March when UF was like, all right, we're sending everybody home for 2 weeks. Well, it was March, right?
Yeah,
it was March. Did you think that everybody was going to come back in 2 weeks?
The optimist in me said yes, and I was like, yeah, like we're totally going to come back, because I wanted to come back, because like I said, like I cannot live in my house. Like it kills me. Like having to stay home, for those like however many months, that was rough. But, then they were like, oh yeah, we're just going to stay online for the whole semester. And then summer was online, and then fall's online. And I'm like, it's okay. But, you learn, and you have to find the positive outlook, because if you don't, I would still be sitting at home, like drowning in my sorrows, and it's not the way to live.
I want to circle back to some of that, because I'm kind of interested in what you've heard for spring semester, because I've gotten mixed messages, but we'll go to Matt next.
Well, so
introduce, give us your full name and your company first.
Matt Lang, Lang Jewelers in Tioga Town Center. So COVID, this year started off really, really well for us. We were setting record numbers, just like we did last year. And the reality of COVID kind of snuck up on us, because we were just really busy. We were watching it, but we really just had no idea that we were going to be told that you have to close your store. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, like any business owner, that was pretty terrifying for us. We were like, wait a minute, so we have to stop making money? You really, as a small business owner, you don't, that's just not something you even really think about ever.
Put food on the table.
Right. I mean, it is what it is. And so, so we were told, we have to close. So we did. And that was definitely the first week. My wife and I, who's she's my partner in the business, we're together 24/7. We're sitting at home and we're like looking at each other and we're like, what the hell do we do? We're normally in the rat race every day. And so not to extrapolate too much, we actually had, it was about 7 weeks, I think, that we were closed, about 7. We actually had a great time for 7 weeks. because we realized that we don't have the stress of work. So, we drank a lot. We hung out. We did projects around the house, but we just really got along. I think we only got in one argument like the whole time. But yet it was stressful. We were worried about our employees and our daughter.
How many employees do you have?
We have 4 employees right now.
Part-time, full-time?
Basically part-time.
Okay.
And so we were worried about them. 2 of them are students, so they had their own things to deal with. But overall, we just sort of went with the flow. And I mean, do you want like the whole story?
Yeah, just give us
so through COVID, we were just, like I said, we were just sort of riding the wave, watching what was going on. We weren't too worried about paying the bills because, we live below our budget. We plan for this kind of stuff as a business. Well, not COVID, but you always have to have reserves. And then when we opened back up, to be entirely honest with you, we hit the ground running and our heavy hitters showed up. And within about 3 weeks, we had made up all of our losses for that time and then some. And it has not slowed down since.
What do you mean by heavy hitters? These are like loyal customers who buy from you often?
Loyal customers and people that, people that have disposable income.
Yeah.
And
had you changed any messaging or anything? Like,
I mean,
was it like, yo, we're closed, we need you to come buy a damn diamond, let's go?
No, we never, no. We just, we just said, hey, we're back. Love to see everybody. I think one of the things, a lot of people, they weren't traveling. They weren't spending money on other things.
Okay.
Jewelry is a very emotional purchase. Spouses can get, maybe they were a little depressed about things, and hey, what better to make them feel better than a really nice piece of jewelry or something,
Okay.
So that happened, and been doing really well since. We, July is always dead for us just because of the month, and but overall we're doing really well. Best year ever. And
best year ever?
Yeah, this is our best year ever, even with COVID. And I hate to even say that because I have so many friends that are,
Are you secretly like, I hope COVID goes on for the next 5 years?
Listen, man, no, of course not.
I'm just asking.
But there's just been a lot of positive things for us. I mean,
yeah.
Even the negative part, which now I do a side gig. I actually fly around the country and train other jewelers in-house.
Okay.
It's a side thing.
That's
I
cool.
do. I lost 7 gigs in that period of time, and for the remainder of the year, I would have probably had 6 or 7 more. So I did get hit financially in that aspect. And man, I really that's like my passion is to teach people how to do what I do, and I really miss that, and that's just not happening. Last year I was in Vegas and New York and all over the country, and being treated like the talent, which is really cool. And so other than that, but everything else, we're expecting to have a record Christmas this year. It's looking good. I mean, people have already started shopping. But I just feel really bad even saying.
Have you done anything to like really change, or like is it you just kind of maintaining what you normally do and you're just expecting a better Christmas simply because of COVID?
We kind of changed the paradigm with our online, of course. We didn't really focus too much online in the past because jewelry is one of those things, especially expensive jewelry. You want to touch it and feel it and try it on. So we really put a lot of money and time into our website this year, and that's really helped a lot. But for the most part, we've just stayed with a positive message, and just basically, said we're here, and we'd love to see everybody, and people are coming in, and we're following all the rules. We have masks and hand sanitizer and all that, and it's very difficult to show a piece of jewelry without touching it and handing it to someone and them touching it. So you do have that issue. I will say that our overall foot traffic is down. It is for sure down. We aren't having as many people walk through the door, but yet our sales are bigger and better, which, the reason why that is.
When you closed the shop, because we all had to close, but we didn't. We kind of closed. It was like we closed the showroom, right? Because, we were still essential from the standpoint that we had the service aspect. Like, how long were you closed for? Because we ended up coming back June 1st. Right, so we were really close.
I think it was 7 weeks.
Okay.
If my wife is here, she could tell you to the hour, but dates, times, that's her gig.
Oh, that's super interesting. Yeah. I'm glad things are going well, man.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, we're just blessed. Every day
Now leave the room. Nobody wants to hear this.
I know, right? So my wife's like, just be humble. I'm like, babe, I can't. You know me. I'm not humble. But I really hate saying that, but it's the truth. I'm not going to sit here.
You're not the only one, though. I mean, like, I'm happy for you, man. Like, I mean, there's been, several businesses that have actually done well because of the pandemic. So I think it's kind of interesting, and I'm actually glad that you're here to kind of speak on, behalf of those businesses, if you will, because I think it's important to even realize that, like, hey, like, some businesses have done extremely well because of it. So we'll circle back. It's super, super interesting. Mary, how about you?
Well, I guess I can kind of build off both of those because I've had a little bit of success regarding how much I've had to pivot my business specifically.
Real quick,
yes,
just for the listening audience that might not really know what independent studio is, just give a 30-second explanation.
Independent studio, it is a performing arts studio for children ages 3 to, we actually have adult classes. We've had someone as old as 87 taking our classes, so I'm very proud of that. And we've had babies, 12 months, 1 year, taking our classes at the studio. And so what we offer is performing arts classes, dance, music, singing, acting to the Gainesville community and surrounding areas.
So you're talking about a service where people normally would come in on a daily basis.
You typically or should be in person. Absolutely, right. Yeah. So March 13th, Friday the 13th, I will add. That was
had 2 of those this year.
Right. Yeah. Friday we don't have many classes for the community. It's more of our competitive team rehearsals. We save those for Fridays and weekends. And I was kind of looking, and I was following Alachua County School Board, and I thought, yikes, like, something's going on. Like, I think I need to cancel classes. I tend to follow the school board. That's what I'm supposed to do. I mean, it's not like a rule, but I should, being the business that I am, catering to children. And they canceled school, and then there was a week of classes supposed to be scheduled, and then it was their scheduled spring break. So in my mind, going back to what you were saying, I was thinking, okay, well, the most this is going to be is like a week, and then they'll have the spring break, and then everything will be fine after spring break, and we'll come back in April, and we'll be good to go. And that certainly wasn't the case. But being like how OCD I am and anal I am when it comes to my business, we kind of leapt into action like right away. On Sunday, we were in our business, in our studio. All of my staff, my 12 staff members, showed up, and we videoed several classes. I don't know what brought me to this thought that I need to do this. I don't know why. Like, looking back, I truly wasn't in the mindset that this was going to be a long haul. I truly thought it was only going to be a short period of time. But I thought tuition, the kids, I want the kids to be happy. I want their parents to be happy. I want my customers to be happy. So I need to do something to where I'm still offering my services, even if it's not in the same way. And so we went online that Monday. We were online on Zoom. We had videos. It wasn't the normal schedule that we normally run, but it was a limited schedule, but it was something. Like, I felt like I needed to continue to offer something to kind of maintain or retain those clients for that period of time that I thought it would be. And it turns out we didn't open up to in-person classes until July. So it was a good thing we kind of leapt into action, and we did those, we worked through an app at our studio already before any of this happened. We have an app, so the parents were on that. We, sent Zoom links. We did online classes. We did online activities. We did spa nights. We did, family dance parties. We did all kinds of stuff that I could go into. But I feel like overall the way that COVID affected my business mainly is I've just had to completely turn it upside down and look at it from a different way, because teaching dance classes isn't something that was ever thought to be all online. It was definitely there as like an option, but to be the primary business model was never there. So it's been an interesting year for sure. Yeah.
Is everything gonna be okay?
Yes, I think so. I'm very optimistic. We're probably at like 60% occupancy of what we were last year. And I think you were saying that you were having like the best month ever before this all happened, or, and same with me. February, I got married in January. I actually took the whole month of January 2020 off because I was doing well enough to say, hey, you know what? This is my business. I've raised it for 11 years. I'm going to do this for my wedding. My wedding was in the middle of January, and I'm going to have a wedding, and I'm going to enjoy it, and not going to come back until the end of January, beginning of February. Well, I was back for 3 or 4 weeks, and then this happened. So, yeah, I think it's going to be...
So you're never taking off again, right?
Never.
Yeah.
Ever.
Never do that.
What a fantastic wedding present.
Ever. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
You just
You're
got
quarantined
married.
for a year.
A blender in a pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been fine. I think we're going to be okay. But, I think I've learned a lot from you over the years, Collin, like with like company culture and things like that. And like Kristen, Hadid, like just, like following you guys and just like instilling those things in my staff. And I feel like at like ground zero, we were like, all right, it's Sunday. We don't know why we can't have classes Monday. We're not sure we understand all this, but we're going to go online and we're going to do this. And everyone kind of just followed me and leapt into action and was so willing to help that that's why I know we're going to be okay. I guess it's a long-winded answer, but, I felt like my staff kind of just like all came together and we made it work. And now, starting in September, we have a full fall schedule, limited numbers, obviously social distancing, and I can talk more about that later. But I have about 60% kids, but we are hybrid classes. So we have maybe 2 or 3 kids online in every single class we have, and then the rest are in person. So we're working in this whole new world, essentially.
So, briefly, tell me about the kids in this, right? Because this is, I have an 11 and 7-year-old, and I feel like I'm sitting over here as a parent and being like, man, like I would hate to be them right now. This is terrible.
Yeah.
And they're just so like children are just so resilient.
That's like the word for me is resilience. It's I feel like if anyone can learn anything through all of this is I don't have my own children. I mean, I say that I have 250 of my own children that I say goodbye to every night as they go home with their parents. But I think resiliency is just like the word of 2020 when it comes to children. I mean, even college students. A lot of the staff that I have are college students, and they were in their backyards in Miami by their pool, like teaching tap dance classes in April. So like,
that's cool.
Have the young kids like really been able to just adapt with all the changes that you guys have had to make?
More so than they're given credit for sure. I thought masks were going to be a big issue. And they are. I mean, when you're 3 years old and you just learn how to pee-pee on the potty and now you have to wear a mask on your face and then take a dance class for 45 minutes, it can be challenging, but they actually like just kind of took to it a lot better than I think the parents, and not necessarily their parents, but just adults in general give credit for. Like I hear a lot more adults complaining about it than kids. Yeah. I think kids are just kind of like, all right, well, here I am. Like I got to wear a mask. My mom told me to, so here I go. But as far as like the dance classes go, especially like my kids that dances like their passion, like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, like that like nice like age where they're like figuring out what they love. They like really took to it, and any extra thing I offered to them online, if I could get, I'm going off in a tangent, but I have some friends in New York and LA and stuff that have worked on movies and worked on things, and because of the pandemic I've been able to say, hey Scott, like can you teach them a musical theater class on Tuesday? Yeah, I can do that over Zoom, like that. So it's opened up a lot of doors, and for them to be like, oh wait, we get to take, the guy who was in Chicago, we get to take that class. And so like yes,
been the same for like me too, like having
Yeah.
a bunch of really cool speakers that normally wouldn't be able to come because your class is in person.
Right.
But you're getting to hear from these big time CEOs and
Yeah.
business owners because we are online and they can just hop on a Zoom call real quick. So.
And believe it or not, you would think it's less personal, but it's almost more personal because there's 25 kids in the class and this person is saying, hey, Chloe, make sure you point your feet.
Exactly.
Hey, Eve, I really love what you did there. That was awesome. And this person was in a movie. So, I mean, it could be all night, but, they've been really resilient, but they've also seen like the benefits and the opportunities that it's brought to them. And I think that that's something that adults could learn from for sure.
Matt, you know who else has benefited from this year? Zoom.
I think about that all the time.
So it's funny because we talked about this even during the coronavirus sessions that we were doing, which you were on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about Zoom, and one of the I'd never gotten into stocks or anything before.
Yeah.
Right. I
You're
went
like,
out. The
shoot.
very first thing that I did when all this went down, I was like, no, kind of smart actually thinking about it. Just not long-term smart, just short-term. Like I went out, I was like, I'm going to buy one share of Zoom. Everybody and their mother is going to be using Zoom in 2020.
Good for you.
I bought a share. It was like $135, $140. And so you guys are just talking about Zoom, it just triggered it for me. So I just went to look to see what it's trading at. It's at $405.50 a share right now. And
it makes sense.
I
About 100
sold
shares.
way too soon. I sold way too soon. Yeah. I wish I would have bought 100 shares at 100, man. But anyway, that just kind of triggered that when you guys were talking about Zoom. Like Zoom has definitely benefited from this year too.
I actually
probably better than you
did
had.
a jewelry teaching seminar on Zoom.
Did you?
A couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And adapting, like what you said.
Yeah, I definitely want to circle back to some of the pivots and stuff that you guys have made. But so Dan, what about you guys, man? Because I mean, you see everything.
It has been a wild ride. I mean, taking a step back, our office here in Gainesville was only a year old in March, right? So we were in the process of getting all the systems in place and getting everything established. And I felt like we had really kind of hit our stride. We were, doing great things. We had tons of business. We were well received in the community. And I remember specifically.
And so for people who don't know, commercial, it's commercial real estate.
Yeah. I'm with a company called Colliers International. It's a full service commercial advisory firm. They're based in Toronto. But we have a very small office here. At the time, right as kind of COVID came on, we had 4 people in our office where, it's a $3.5 billion publicly traded company. They're in 68 countries. They have 18,000 people working for the company. So it's kind of a unique perspective because we get to see, we're in small, we're in a secondary market in Gainesville. We're in a small market. There's only 4 of us, but we get to see kind of the business and everything through the lens of a very large international organization. And so that's provided some very unique perspective throughout COVID. But yeah, going back to it, so we were just, we were only open for a year. And I remember it specifically. I was down at a conference in Orlando for real estate. It was an industrial and office conference, and it was in March. And it was that Thursday where they canceled Gator Nationals and they canceled March Madness, and we were at the Gaylord Palms, and that is a massive place down there, right? And we were there was like 50 of us at this conference, and we were the only ones in the whole place. It was eerie. I mean, it was like a ghost town down there. And leading up to that, there's been other diseases that have made national news over the last few years, and they've kind of fizzled out, and it's never been a thing. And when I saw that though, and March Madness and all that, I was like, wow, this is for real. I mean, this has some staying power. So
right.
We it was wild, but and we were in talks to bring on a few new folks, kind of right as COVID hit, and we actually were able to grow double the size of the office throughout COVID. We went from 4 people to 8 people, and we've been very, very fortunate to be able to do that. Gainesville provided us a little diversification that a lot of my other colleagues in bigger markets didn't have. So, we will do retail work here, office work, industrial, land, a little bit of multifamily. I have colleagues in bigger markets that, are so niche focused on one asset class, hotels, retail, and, whatever it is. Some of those sectors just completely stopped. I mean, it was, and we call it, we had like the tagline in our industry is like, it was the great pause. Because, you referenced it earlier, it was kind of similar to the Great Recession but not really. We didn't see the big price slashing and people, unloading things and banks taking back real estate and all that kind of stuff. It was just like everyone just went, holy cow, like push pause and let's just see how this thing shakes out, and so most of the, we were fortunate. We had a lot of our deals that were in progress. We were able to extend them and kind of, we didn't lose a lot, but it was unlike anything anyone's ever seen. It's crazy. But
can you give us like a state of Gainesville address, if you will?
Yeah.
Because you interact with a lot of businesses.
Lots.
There's probably been a lot of people who have either closed and now their spaces have come available for lease or or for sale, whatever the case might be. What's the state of Gainesville in this?
So one of the unique factors about the Gainesville market, is two of our main economic drivers are healthcare and education, right? And those are usually completely insulated from market volatility. The markets can be, freaking out, and other, bigger primary markets can be, so high highs and low lows. Gainesville, you always have 50,000 UF students showing up. You always have a need for healthcare, and you got North Florida and Shands and everything that UF Health does, the VA hospital, and we're an economic. Those are our economic drivers. Those are our employment. We're an employment hub for a big area in North Florida here. Well, that got turned completely on its head, right? You send all the students home, and if you're not on the front lines of COVID, it's like you're anything elective, elective surgeries, anything that's not on the front lines of COVID, medical wise, it's stopped. Tons of furloughs, tons of people just not working because there was nothing to do. So that really shocked our local market, right? Because it's something no one ever really saw coming. But with that being said, because we're diversified and we have retail and office and industrial and land and all that kind of stuff, and paired with the fact that a lot of our transactions take a long time, like so our development deals take every bit of 2 years. That was really a blessing because deals that were trying to happen or were in some part of the pipeline, they still had a long time to go before they're closing, right? So people were thinking, well, we got to be over this, by then. And it's lasted a lot longer than anyone thought, but some of those deals are so lengthy anyways that it was, we were able to salvage a lot of it. And people are still very, very optimistic on Gainesville, and, the students are going to come back. The healthcare community here is now it's, back up and running. And, so kind of to, reiterate what Matt said, we've had a heck of a year. For about 7-8 weeks there, I was working from home. Because we were such a small office, we were actually in an office where we each had individual offices, so we never really had to close. We could kind of stay behind closed doors, but we did work from home for about 7 weeks. And I took that opportunity to work on my business instead of just working in my business all the time. My business is can become very reactionary where, I'm getting hit with phone calls and emails and just it's constant and you're just reacting.
Text messages from me.
Text messages.
Hey, what about
Collin
this?
saying, is my space leased yet?
What about this? What about this?
Yeah. So it really, because everything kind of went on pause, it was a great opportunity. And it was being paired with the fact that the office was only a year old, I was able to spend a lot of time, not necessarily working deals, but more on systems for the business and how we can, grow long term. And I wore a little bit different of a hat throughout COVID. I was definitely more of like the advisor / shoulder to cry on, type thing, as opposed to, hey, do you want to transact, sale, lease, anything like that? And that really wasn't happening. But there were a lot of concerned owners that were calling, and and saying, what are you seeing in the market, and me being able to have access to a lot of the owners, and see what they were doing. I really just wore an advisory hat, and it kind of really deepened my customer relationships a lot. So
that's good. I feel like you're one of those people that kind of has a pulse on things, right?
Yeah.
I had a lot of people reaching out to me too. It's kind of like, Collin, you have your pulse on a lot of stuff that's happening in the business world. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to hear your perspective on, now that we're heading into 2021, like,
yeah, I've been so.
It's going to be good. It's going to be bad. It's like,
well, what does the crystal ball say?
It's like Matt,
tell us the future, please.
Yeah, like Matt said, we were coming into the summer. Our business came roaring back. And we've been thrilled with that. So, and I think it's only going to happen moving into 2021. So, there's some things that people are concerned about in our business, with, not to get like technical stuff, but like 1031 exchanges and capital gains and some tax consequences about, the new administration and some different things. So there's some concern there. But in general, I think, we're definitely on an upward trajectory, and, those economic drivers I talked about, healthcare and educational, they're going to bring Gainesville back. They're going to be the groups that bring Gainesville back to, and I think honestly we are already back, so from a commercial real estate perspective.
Cool.
So
let's talk a little bit about that, and I like the effort to try to be apolitical here, but I think a huge part of this has been the economic response, all the way from DC top down. So there was the CARES Act payroll protection program. Did you guys apply for that? Were you granted? Have you had it forgiven?
Yes.
To which? That was 3 questions.
No. Yes to all the above, for me.
So you applied for it, the PPP?
Yep.
You got it?
Yep.
And it's been forgiven?
Yep.
And you got the CARES Act too?
No, not the CARES
The
Act.
LATRA?
Just PPP.
Okay. Yeah. Did you say that? Or
sorry. Yeah.
Sorry. I was going there too. But
okay.
And we did too. We had New Scooters had applied and got it.
So New Scooters for Less applied, and that was like the first thing that I did. I don't know what you like. When I'm at home and things are going down, I'm like, where can I stack cash? That was the first thing that I did. I was like, let's get this PPP
what can
money.
I stop paying, and what
yeah, and I started reaching out to vendors. I mean, that's the first. I just remember going through my P&L, like, what can I scratch, and I just absolutely went into that mode, and then focused on how I can stack cash. And so the PPP was coming out, and so we applied right in that first round. And I remember my bank even didn't have their act together.
That's right.
Right. And so I switched banks. I was like, I want to make sure I get this money. We switched banks and got it going. So we got the PPP and we got it forgiven just this past week, or the week before last, and last week, I guess.
Which is actually mid-November.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the Electro Cares stuff we did not get.
Yeah.
And it was because I almost took it as a compliment. I was like, no, you've done too good.
You've had too much of an impact on you.
You've done too good from our standards in 2020, so denied. But go ahead.
We had an amazing experience with our bank, which is Capital City.
Okay.
My wife filled out the application. They took it from there. We got it. It wasn't a huge amount of money because I have part-time employees, but still, it was nice to get it. We haven't been formally forgiven yet, but I just got an email this morning that said, we're handling it. Don't worry about it. I have 100% confidence that it's going to happen. We didn't even.
There's an application process. You did that process?
You know what? I need my wife here to answer that.
Oh, okay.
I am positive she's on it.
Okay.
She's CFO. She handles the entire side of the financial side of our business. And
can we call her real quick? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
She'll be watching this. Notice I've mentioned her name several times. She gets all the credit. But we didn't even apply for the CARES Act. We looked at the qualifications, and to be honest with you, it was. This is like a huge sidetrack for me about like PPP and stuff. We didn't feel like we needed it, so we didn't apply for it. And if we have time, I could go into the whole PPP thing because I know some things that happened with PPP with some companies that I'm really pissed about.
Okay.
People took major advantage of that, They did not need it. They took it. It's getting forgiven. If we have time, we can talk about that.
Okay.
Excuse me, don't get me started.
I'm not going to name any names.
Sounds like we hit the topic point because
But as someone who's doing really well right now, I've seen some things, especially, and people love to come in and just tell me how great they're doing, especially when they're dropping major coin on jewelry. And I'm just sitting there going, "Oh, that's great," and I'm thinking to myself, "Wow, you're kind of a scumbag for doing that."
Because they didn't necessarily need it, but
no, they absolutely didn't. We're talking about essential businesses.
I mean, yeah. So
Meanwhile,
yeah, I mean, so Mary, I mean,
let me segue from that.
'cause I feel like you're very much in a similar boat as we were.
Yes.
I mean, and I hate to even like say this, but if we would not have gotten that money, we would not be in business right now.
100%.
So,
So I'm in a unique situation where I've actually gotten both. The PPP, I was actually denied at first. And it was all through the same bank, which I love, Florida Credit Union. Shout out to them.
That's who
if they're
did ours
listening.
too.
I mean, bless. They're actually the reason I have a business. In 2009, in a recession, Steve Jepson, I guess I'll just drop names. Thank goodness for him. He helped me open my business in 2009 and circle back, the pandemic. I applied for the PPP and I originally was denied because of the fact that all of the criteria and the rules about what you need to have in order to apply for the PPP and to be forgiven were changing on a daily basis. Literally, you could go on the website and you could look and say, here's how you get the PPP. And those rules were changing daily, if not weekly. And I own a dance studio, so I'm unique. Whereas my staff, they're college students, and their schedules change week to week. They don't always teach, or they don't always work the same, 9 to 5, or if they were to work at Chick-fil-A, say, and they work from this to this, they're not employees, they're independent contractors. And so all of my employees, well, they're not technically employees, but in the eyes of the government, they're independent contractors because they teach private lessons, they book rentals at the studio, they teach classes, and their schedules are ever changing, as is mine. And so that's how I've always been advised to run my business and to financially pay my staff. And that's what really hurt me when it came to this is still to this day, I'm not forgiven. I got the PPP, but I haven't, and I've gone through the whole application to be forgiven, and even the questions on it.
Were you able to get the funds to cover them? Or
yes.
No? Okay, so
I
you
did.
were.
And that's what I used it for.
Okay.
100%.
Sorry, I don't know if I missed that, but I just want to make sure.
Sorry, I didn't. I did. So I was denied, and then a couple weeks later, because the things were changing, they said, listen, like, this could change within a day, a week, a month, and you've been with us for this long, and so long story short, they awarded me the PPP under the condition of, you may have to pay this back, just so you know, like, because they don't know either. Like, we're all just kind of like flying by the seat of our pants, and so I.
And so you took that risk?
I did.
Okay.
I did because, like you just said, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't be open.
Right.
I wouldn't have been able to pay my staff for those 6 months that I was closed in person, because when it comes to me, I mean, gyms were not able to be open. Even though schools and summer camps started opening back up, there was a very gray area because I'm a dance studio. So yes, we're a physical activity, but we're indoors, but we're not a gym and we're not a child care facility. We're like very gray area. And, I took it because I had to. I didn't know what else to do. And then the CARES Act came around and they helped me tremendously. I will say if it weren't for the CARES Act in Gainesville, I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be talking about my business. Maybe I would be. I'd be talking about it being closed. But so I have a very different, unique experience when it comes to all the funding. And as soon as all this was happening and all this was becoming available, I just made sure that I applied for everything I possibly could. in hoping that I would get everything that I possibly could, even if it was just 1 out of 10 things that I applied for. But it's happening, and it's helped us hang on by a thread, I will admit. And, like I said, like my clientele is down like 50 to 60% right now. So I'm changing my budget, I'm changing my structure, I'm changing everything about my business. But without the funding, that absolutely 100%, I will just admit that has kept me open 100%.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Thanks for being super transparent about that.
You know me.
I know, like it's hard to talk because just like I said, we didn't get the CARES Act, but we did get the PPP, and like we're in the same boat. We're in the same boat, and there's been the good thing about 2020 is that there's been a lot of eye-opening moments for me. There's been a lot of awakenings, and that was one of them. For me. It was like, dude, like. I don't want to rely on the government to have to bail me out during a pandemic, even though no one in their right mind would have ever predicted that this would have happened.
Right.
But I wish I would have had, because and Matt, you said it earlier, you're like, we had reserves, and like, the truth is, man, like most businesses don't, and we were one of them, and I'm like. In a way, ashamed to even say it, that we don't have reserves, and I think a lot of businesses out there live paycheck to paycheck to paycheck.
Were they invested into growth or
right?
Well, we've certainly been there.
Yeah,
I've been in business almost 30 years, Gainesville. So it's I've gone through 2000. You mentioned 2009. Man, like my bank, 2009. So we're mentioning them in the Tioga Town Center. I was in the middle of my flagship store build out in the expansion of the Tioga Town Center when it all happened. And I'm sitting there with, I'm not even going to get into the numbers of the amount of the inventory that I had already acquired and had already committed to spending money on. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, honey, I think we're going to go bankrupt. Like, there's no way we're going to be able to open this store and sell all this jewelry with what's going on right now. And Don Davis at Capital City, happened to know him. He's like, what do you need? I'm like, I don't know, $100,000. He goes, I'll have it in your account, like signature loan. He goes, I can in-house approve a signature loan for $100,000. He gave it to me. Like, wow, like gift from God kind of thing. We still weren't sure we should stay in and finish the build out, but we did. And I'm not going to lie, 2 to 3 years of hardcore, barely scraping. Thankfully, the people at the town center worked with us, helped us. There was months where it's like, not only am I going to be late on my rent, I don't even have it. I don't know if I ever be able to make it up. But people worked with us. You go out and they didn't want to see us fail. They, everybody was in it together. That term here comes again. But 2009 wasn't so different than COVID.
Yeah.
And so we scratched and clawed our way back to being in the black. And I see the same pattern with a lot of businesses right now. Really close friend of mine, especially in like the food business, and like I have a friend that's in the they have a martial arts studio, all kinds of things like we're talking about. And I am really hoping that people can get through this. I already have seen several people just give up and fail. It's just like they can't do it.
Yeah, it's so interesting just hearing you like talk about like 2009 and you going through that.
Yep.
And so here you're doing great right now.
Roles reversed, right?
The roles were reversed in 2008, 2009 when all this stuff was happening. Like gas prices had the fear of like going up to $5 a gallon. Guess who was crushing it?
Yeah,
Scooters.
These guys.
Well, I think 2009
we were crushing
actually
it.
prepared us for COVID because it was such a struggle. We were like, man, we can never be strapped for that kind of debt ever again. And we do take risks. We expand inventory and stuff like that, but we're kind of done. I mean, at this age, I'm kind of done expanding. I mean, I had 3 stores at one point in Gainesville, 2 in the mall and 1 out there. I'm fine with 1. We're just going to kind of keep the way things are. We're good where we are. We could live the way we live right now for the rest of our lives. We'd be completely happy. I'd love a jet. I'd love to be Bezos, but without some major lottery Powerballs, it's probably not going to happen, but we're perfectly happy with the way we are now. And so, I feel for the people that are struggling right now, but I can certainly, I know I've said, we're doing great and everything's great.
But you've been there.
Believe me, I lost I'm surprised they have hair. But that's why it's gray. My hair was blonde in 2008. So yeah, I can feel for people right now because that whole thing was a hell of a struggle for us.
Maybe that's like, I have to pitch in, but like maybe that's why my business is like a little more resilient now, because I opened it in 2009 and everyone thought I was crazy that I was opening this dance studio in 2009. And I think I opened a business struggling, if you will, right? I mean, opening a business and running a business is a struggle in itself, but going through that, like, you know, budgeting and I mean, just the nitty gritty stuff, it just makes you really realize, like, you know, you can simplify things and you have to pivot and you have to, I hate that term, just like makes me think of Friends.
Friends, yeah, you can. Yeah.
But I can't help it. I just start laughing. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, like just comparing the two times in our economy for sure.
Yeah. You know, it's super interesting because like just going back to that time period, you know, I've naively have said, you know, Gainesville is it's kind of its own economy. You know, we have these students that show up every year.
I refer to Gainesville as recession proof.
Yeah. I mean, I've done the same
It
thing.
really has been.
Exactly.
I mean,
Okay.
even 2009.
So I'm glad I'm not the only one because
Right.
I've literally said that so many times.
It's
I'm
true.
like, man, I'm like, oh, you know, the thing that I can count on is that there's going to be freshmen showing up in the fall.
Right.
And, you know, and so that's always been good for my business. And so going through those times, like, you know, 2009, when like, you know, we were just fine and we were doing really well. We were doing even better because gas prices were, you know, going up. And so it's super interesting that, well, one, we're wrong. All it takes is like a pandemic to shut down the university, and you know, and it's super interesting. And actually, I would like to kind of go that direction really quick because, let's go to spring semester, right? You know, I've heard that UF wants to have classes in session, but I've also kind of been monitoring. You know, I'm in a bunch of these like private UF Facebook groups with parents and that kind of thing. And I've seen parents say, you know, oh, you know, my daughter's really upset because all of her classes are online again for the spring. So, I mean, Sarah, like, what have you seen from, you know, UF's standpoint? Like,
Yeah.
our class is going to happen on campus in the spring?
So at least with some of my classes, you know, I'm a business major. Majority of my classes on a normal day are online anyways. So for a lot of business students, yes, it has been changed, but it's not something we're not used to. So it's something, you know, I was kind of ready for. I knew like how to like battle the online like learning environment. But going into this spring, I am very fortunate to have some in-person classes. They are like limited seats, so it's kind of that hybrid format. Some people will be sitting in the classroom and then other people would be on like the Zoom learning environment. But yeah, I'm really fortunate to have in-person classes, some of them in the spring for sure. But yeah, it just really depends, like I guess on the college that you're in, and if that certain class is offering like the in-person limited seating, socially distanced kind of thing.
What's the biggest complaint you've heard from students this year?
Zoom fatigue.
Zoom fatigue.
I think you know, for me, Tuesdays, I sit in class for 4 hours straight on Zoom in my house. And I think the biggest thing is I can't sit at home that long. I have to go to a coffee shop so I can interact with friends there, meet new people there, or I have to just get out of my house. And yes, it's on Zoom still, but it's different when I'm not sitting at home the whole time for sure. So yeah, Zoom fatigue for sure. That's a struggle.
Have there been any positives from a student standpoint? Mary, maybe you can even chime in on this because I know that you got college workers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
So
think.
I mean, anything positive from a college student standpoint?
We've had lots of time to, you know, like think about ourselves, reflect on ourselves, but, you know, those students that aren't from Gainesville like I am, they've been able to go home. So I do have friends that are here, but if they want to take a long weekend and go home, that's totally an option for them because, you know, their classes are online. They can do it from the bus, like on the way home or something like that.
Flexibility.
So much more flexibility. It's been great, you know, like.
Which has been terrible for us. We're like, we need your butt to be in the classroom. Stay in the classroom.
Yeah, but I would think like that's a big positive, and I think it's really preparing us for work in the future, learning how to, be professional, like through a camera, how to interview on a camera. I've, become really good at that. Not necessarily the circumstances that we're all wishing for, but it's definitely taught me, how to do that, how to hold a meeting online, how to be, accountable when I'm not actually going in person, things like that.
Any fear that something like this could go, oh, you don't really need a campus. You don't really need students in a classroom going to sit in front of a professor to do their classes.
Well,
For like a hot second, and then it's over.
I think it's
Okay.
interesting, and I'm curious, Sarah, like how you and your friends handle this, because one thing that I've kind of heard from friends or friends of friends that are going to college is that they're upset about the fact that their tuition dollars, which is supposed to be built in, covering these in-person classes and this office hours with teachers and the extracurriculars and the money that's going to the gym for them to go to and everything like that, they're not getting fair value on their tuition.
Interesting.
I was going to mention that tuition better go down drastically.
Yeah,
if that
and you know
happens.
it's not going to. And what's happening as this prolongs too is they're talking about
But are
how,
you paying for that stuff, or are you paying for the piece of paper that says like
Well,
graduated
right.
college?
they're billing you for it. I mean, if you look in the tuition breakdown, at least whenever I was a student, it says, I forget how they code it, but it's like X amount of dollars towards shared use facilities and stuff like that they're not getting anymore. But in terms of economic impact on the universities too, if you have out-of-state people that are no longer going to go there because they can't travel there, and international students have taken a huge drawback, and that tuition's even higher, how are the universities going to combat their budgets not being met by these tuition dollars being paid? And that's what's going to be interesting, is because that they're not going to, they're a business too, and they're going to react to that in some kind of way.
The students still want the college experience. That's
right.
Yeah.
Really,
Exactly.
I mean.
So I have a question for Sarah. 'cause
Yeah.
I have an 18-year-old daughter who just started FSU. She did not want to live in Gainesville. I can't blame her. Come on,
What?
she grew up here. So anyway, she's a student at FSU. All of her classes are online, yet she's living in the dorm up there. All right. One of her complaints is, and even though the campus is basically opened up, is there's how are the extracurricular activities, clubs? I mean, my kid's not like a sorority chick, but basically the frats are shut down up there.
Yeah.
What about like clubs? Like my daughter's really into doing like art and other types of clubs. Are the clubs happening, or is that all dead? Because at her campus, she's
Dead.
like, Dad, there's nothing going on. I'm bored. I sit in my room all day, and
So I'm a sophomore, so I'm really fortunate to have known about a lot of things, last year and things like that. But all of my involvement is just online. So I'm still heavily involved within the business school and things on campus. It's just all online. And if I want to do something in person, it's a smaller group. It's everyone that's comfortable meeting up in person, taking all of those precautions, of course, but it is online. And so like I was saying earlier, it's really weird, having those friends online that you've never met in person before. But it's something I'm so thankful for, because I wouldn't be the person I am, and I wouldn't, yes, I'm missing out a little bit on that experience, but my college experience still is being fulfilled because I have, involvement and things like that, just online. Yeah.
interesting.
Are there things like intramural sports at all? Or is that completely shut down?
I think so. I mean, I can't say that for certain. I'm not sure, but I know friends that, will go up and, play lacrosse together or play soccer, like have rec games and things like that. I know friends that still do that.
Well, I know if they're like university-sponsored events, they're not happening. They're happening online. I know, for instance, like the Dazzlers at UF, the dance team, they went through a whole audition process for a new team for the next season, and those kids are kind of waiting in limbo, coming from high schools or up and coming like college students trying to get on, and they did their entire audition process online.
Wow.
I judged it. I know, and it's interesting, and a couple of them work for me, and it's a whole different experience. And I know that like the coach and like the UAA and stuff having issues with like, you know, like one day, like maybe we can have like 10 kids at the football game, like in the stands, socially distanced. And the next day we're not allowed to have anybody because it's been canceled. And so it is interesting. So I don't think much is going on. And I know there's a lot of like student organizations, at least on the dance side. That's all I really know as far as UF goes. But I know that they're doing like a lot of their classes. The student organizations are doing like their dance classes online, and then they're putting on shows at the Phillips Center that are socially distanced, and then they're showing their shows online. So it's a lot of online, like you said, and it's a lot of like, so I think that there is an issue where these like incoming freshmen and there's incoming students that are coming to have that college experience, as you said, they're not getting it because they're like, okay, well, you know, like I'm going to join this group, but I've not met anybody, I'm online, and then I'm going to show up and do the show, and I've not really seen anybody yet in person. So it's a very interesting dynamic, but if you were to look at the positive side of it, at least it's happening. Like at least something's happening, and at least it's better than nothing. And at least like the kids, again, resilience, they're like making it work and they're making it happen. So I'm sure if in the dance side of things, which is what I'm only familiar with, if that's happening, I'm sure there's other organizations that it's happening in the same respect.
Yeah, I have a family member who's a freshman this year at UF, and she
need a scooter.
She does actually, yeah.
Does she dance?
No, a guy.
But anyway,
No girl.
She's from out of state, and she's definitely not getting the full college experience, but she's so thrilled to be here on campus, even though all her classes are online, because her senior year of high school got so messed up.
That's what I was going to say.
Exactly.
Her class trip got canceled, prom got canceled, graduation. So she was just so ready to turn to the next chapter in her life. And so she was just thrilled to be here. So it's you gotta feel for these kids. They're definitely resilient.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly what my daughter was.
Yeah.
And when she told me, I'm going to FSU, and I'm like, oh, you're living in the dorms. She's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, at least you'll have classes. You meet. Well, they're all online. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
Live in the dorms, taking classes
paying
online.
for you to go to FSU, and your classes are all online. And really, it was just like my wife. She's like, Matt, you gotta let her go.
Yeah.
You gotta let her get out of this house. Because again, her senior trip got canceled. All of that experience, and even though being up there isn't great, she's really she moved out of the house for the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember when you moved out of your house for the first time? What a major experience that was for you. Yeah. That in itself is a major step for a young adult. So.
Going back to like the whole online and flexibility thing, my brother, he's younger than me, but also all of his schooling was online, and it's been great for like me and my brother's relationship for sure. Just like getting to know him better, spending more time with him, and he is stuck at home a lot, but I'm from Gainesville, but I don't live with my parents. So it's been nice to have my brother over with me. We get to like go on weekend trips together. He's an avid golfer. We go out and walk the golf course together. So I think for me, like that's been huge, is just getting to like rekindle that relationship with my brother, grow our relationship, even though it's online, but having a lot of flexibility has been huge.
So that's a super positive thing that happened from 2020.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the other positive things that have happened because of COVID-19 besides Matt's business doing extremely well?
To-go cocktails.
Keep throwing that out there.
To-go cocktails.
To-go cocktails. Yeah, we never had that
take
before.
the drink and drive home with it.
It's sealed.
Yeah.
Well, for the 3 months, I had at the time, what was he 10-month-old at home. I got to spend way more time with him than I would have had to, so that was definitely a blessing. Even though I was working from home, it was great to see him grow up. And then circling back to the Zoom thing, I'm on the phone all day every day, but there's a lot of people that I never really see face to face. Zoom really opened it up where it's much, Zoom and Teams and all the platforms there, it's much more accessible now and accepted, I guess. And so I'm seeing people face to face a lot more, because we do deals with people all across the country, right? And they're not necessarily always in Gainesville, so it's very unique that we're we are seeing a lot more people face to face, and building those relationships and connections. So instead of just being on the phone,
putting a face with a name is
it's huge.
Important.
Yeah, it is huge.
Yeah.
I think for my students specifically, when they had to make the whole transition between, are we doing online school? Are we doing homeschool? Are we doing digital academy? Are we doing in-person school? My kids had been doing online dance for 6 months. And so they were like, well, they had something to compare it to, right? And I think that it just like kind of, for whatever reason, like my business was able to kind of like help the kids kind of like leave the nest and say, hey, we're gonna do in-person school, we're gonna do dance in school. Actually, we're gonna do online school, but then Wednesday through Friday, we're gonna do dance in person. And it kind of helped even teach the parents and the kids a little more flexibility, just like my business model in general. But I don't know, it's crazy. You can find positives in anything. I truly try to, and I think that's one of the positives for sure.
Mike, what's positive for you, man?
Outside of the to-go cocktails.
Yeah.
That was a big one. No, I think for me, it was, being general manager and then CEO at New Scooters was often a 50, 60, 70 plus hour week commitment that I never, either I tell myself I couldn't take time off because the ship would sink, or and maybe that was real, maybe that wasn't. That's just the way it felt.
Real.
But it was everybody pumping the brakes on life, on the hustle and bustle and the chaos, the crush it, the everything. It's everybody pumping the brakes and taking a step back and looking at the things in life that really mattered most. And for me, it was actually just getting to breathe for once, taking some time off. It was still working, and in some ways I worked even harder, but it wasn't that, customer facing, come to the dealership every day thing. And so being able to sit at home, actually be wrapped up with my day at a respectable time, make my own dinner and eat it. It was those little things that I think, probably
got to stop immediately.
he's like, I don't like the way that sounds. You're getting too comfortable. But the things that maybe people, some people out there might take for granted, but it was like actually getting a chance to do that and go to the gym at a decent time, eat dinner, a homemade dinner at a decent time, go to bed at a decent time, and still feel like I was, almost as productive. You talked about how you could put all your meetings together and maybe the time saved from going back and forth from meeting to meeting at this location, how you could save that time and put it somewhere else. And
it's 3:59. I have a meeting at 4 o'clock. I gotta go.
Yeah. And so that whole phenomenon was just crazy because you could save a lot of time that you could put either, you're actually creating time. You can be more productive, or you can use that for self. And I think that was huge.
Definitely the family time for me. That was a big one. I definitely had more time, more family dinners than I've had more family dinners in 2020 than I've had in the last 5 years for sure.
Yeah, it was a complete reset of my calendar and my family's calendar, and professionally and personally. And it was, we're so spread thin and get pulled in different directions, and my business is so socially driven, and it was like, okay, wipe your calendar completely clean, for those 3 months, and you can really reevaluate and kind of start building it back up from the ground up, and see what's really important and what's, what you really want to focus on. So there was a positive.
Did you guys think it would last this long?
No.
Like in March, like now that we're, at the end of the year, in March, I mean, UF was talking about closing for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you think we'd be here in December?
No.
No. No. And I think we need to be careful not to be like a Debbie Downer, because I'm so positive when it comes to like what you were just saying, like the reset. It's provided so much like positivity and like wonderful things for like our families and our mental health and everything like that. But when everyone keeps saying like 2021, we're good.
It's over.
It's over. I'm like, y'all, did you see what happened in 2020?
I'm cautiously optimistic about the way things are going.
I
am not convinced that everything's just going to be great.
It just kind of bugs me that everyone's like, okay, January 1, 2021, like, we're done.
Suddenly
like, let's do
COVID's
this.
gone. So
There's a new
great.
vaccine, right?
I mean,
Are you
look
going to be the
at the rest
first
of
to
the
take
world.
it?
Everyone's shutting down
It's
again.
just like, okay. I don't know. I just think that we just need to continue to be positive, continue to find like the light in things and find the positivity in things and what this is like presenting to us and what's showing us that we need to, you know, kind of like focus on, like divert our focus a couple ways. And January 1, 2021 is going to be amazing, but I don't think much is going to change between December 31st and January 1. It sounds like I'm being a pessimist, but I feel like I'm being an optimist, you know, like I'm just trying to like be real, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, it's like the calendar doesn't necessarily determine whether or not
Yeah, it's
COVID
like, all
is
right,
here
well,
or
we're
not.
all good. COVID's gone. Let's go. Let's do this. Everything's back to normal. Like,
I think every
I think
March
we all
from
wish
2021 and on, we need to have COVID Remembrance Week, and everybody just shuts down.
listen,
And-
there was another Friday
I'm
the
totally
13th.
for that.
Yeah.
Like
idea.
another spring break, but like
Right.
There was
Yeah.
another Friday the 13th, and I freaked out. Like the whole day, the whole morning, I was like, "Oh my god!
It'd be like
it's Friday the 13th. Like this could happen again. Like I
like
don't
Freaky
know.
It could
Friday,
be like
but
the
everything just
spring
goes-
break
Yeah,
for, and that could be like the spring break for like businesses,
Yeah.
or, you know, across the country.
But just
like,
every
oh,
year in March
remembrance
we
of
have
COVID.
COVID Remembrance Weekend. Everybody shuts down, spends time with their family, and then we're just grateful for
And we're
that.
okay.
Yeah,
I think you're onto something.
right. I was gonna say it might be the worst idea I've ever had,
So-
but you know.
Yeah, so I like it, dude.
As long as the bills stop coming.
Right,
on board.
right. Payroll's forgiven.
So Dan,
Everyone gets $1,200.
The landlords wipe out the rent for that month for the commercial guys.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
That
I
would
was
be
actually,
helpful.
when we were talking about that before, I was curious to get your guys, feedback on, did you guys have conversations with your landlords and how did that go? Because I was
Interesting,
seeing,
yeah.
I was seeing a lot of that from both sides, the tenant side, the landlord side, and asking for rent relief and rent deferment and restructuring leases. And so,
Thank you, Dan, for asking better questions than we ask.
Well, I'm very lucky in that
It's great.
up to COVID, I feel like I had a pretty clear, straightforward relationship with my landlord, but they are a bigger, broader company that's not, sourced here in Gainesville. So I wasn't very whatever. But now I will say, because of COVID, I am on a first name basis with someone that lives in New York City, and we text almost every other day, and we talk about how much rent are you sending me this month? How much can we get caught up on this month? And he's so kind. He's so generous. He's so nice.
It's amazing.
I'm very lucky. I think I'm
great.
very lucky. And I don't, where I am in Gainesville, it's not something that I can just meet up with someone like we are right now and say, hey, what's the plan? It's someone that I've never met before. I've never seen before. I don't know, but I feel like I can trust him. And he's like, listen, I'm just checking in. And he's always very careful. He's like, I'm not trying to pressure you. I know things are hard right now. He's happy to get a rent payment and I'm happy to pay it because we're working together.
Yeah.
And so, and that's coming from a much bigger company than someone that's local. So I have been very lucky when it comes to that. And hopefully in the next couple months, I'll be caught up and,
So Dan, is this from your perspective, is this something that you've seen often, or
Yeah.
has it been everybody's just been no?
This was, one of the major themes of COVID in the commercial real estate world was, tenants interacting with landlords. And I've heard a lot of stories very similar to yours, where it was a very positive experience and the relationship was built and it was, the very forward thinking and long-term thinking. And then I've seen some really terrible situations where financially, tenants were suffering, landlords were suffering. They had, debt on, that was, on their neck as well. So it's been, it was a tough situation all along. And I've also seen tenants that were doing extremely well through the pandemic and were still asking for rent relief because they thought it was, a low-hanging fruit that they could do that. You saw some in the national news, you saw some big hitters, like Cheesecake Factory and Starbucks and stuff. They have the weight they can throw around and ask for rent relief, and it's a lot of these landlords are just going to fold and do it. So, but generally speaking, I would say, I've talked to dozens and dozens of owners and tenants, and way more than that actually. But it was a very at least here locally, a lot of landlords and tenants were really working well with each other and trying to navigate the craziness that no one ever saw coming. So
That's great.
yeah.
Mary, how did you reach out to them?
Yes.
During that, yeah, I mean, and that was in March or April?
And I'm very transparent when it comes to everything, but it was just kind of like a, hey, so.
I don't know if you heard in the news or not, but there's a pandemic happening.
There's this thing happening where my business specifically can't meet in person, and I'm trying to do everything right by what the CDC guidelines are and the regulations. I have to, and then I also have to, on another tier, I have kids, so I'm dealing with all the parents of the babies, and the parents are, truly, I mean, not to get too political, but it's important that this percentage of people they shouldn't have to wear masks, and this percentage of people they should wear masks, and this percentage is I'm not going to let my kids back into a dance class in person, and this percentage is when can I drop my kids off? Mm-hmm. So I'm dealing with that whole long scope of things, and it's interesting. And when it comes to the rent and things like that, I'm very lucky that I had someone that was, I reached out to, and I said, here's what's going on, and I just laid it out, and I said, here's how much I can give you now. I'm getting the PPP. I'm going to give some of this, but the most of it has to go to this, and then I'm taking, to my staff, and then I'm taking this for taking donations for these classes, and I'm putting this fundraiser on. And I think they saw from the very beginning that I was doing everything I could to keep it open and to do what I could, and that established that relationship from the start. And I had never heard of this person from New York until the pandemic, which is fine. But now he's like, hey, just checking in. And he's like, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We're literally on a first name basis, whereas I would have probably never talked to that person before. So
interesting.
It is a very interesting dynamic, I guess, when it comes to that. So
cool.
He probably appreciated you reaching out to him and communicating instead of being the type of tenant that just disappears and doesn't answer the phone, doesn't return emails, and they have to chase you down.
Right.
You tend to get more of a positive reaction.
Mm-hmm.
There was times in my life where I wasn't doing well and I was behind on payments and things, and instead of ignoring the phone calls when they would call, I would call them first, and mm-hmm. that's generally from a business standpoint. If you owe someone money, don't avoid them. Reach out to them, work it out, mm-hmm. and you'll generally get a much better response.
And coming from a service industry, when every one of my clients owes me money on a monthly basis, it's a monthly, they owe me money every single month. I don't like to owe anybody money. So I can see both sides of it. So if I'm not collecting that money from people, but then I'm not paying that person that I owe money to, it makes sense. It's that dynamic that you understand, both sides of the story, essentially. Yeah.
Big piece of that was the PPP loans. We would have a lot of. You had mentioned it earlier that your first bank really didn't have their act together and couldn't get it funded, and a lot of landlords who were trying to help their tenants out were calling me and other some of my colleagues about our lending relationships here in town, about, hey, how can I get my tenant help with this PPP process, because most of the larger banks did not have the infrastructure in place, and they just maybe were just so bombarded with applications. But the local banks here did great with it. And
they did.
And they picked up a lot of clients because of it. They have long-term relationships because of just how they bailed people out and helped them through the process when other banks couldn't. So
I mean, my relationship with my the bank that I have been using, there was good communication there, but it's the system, to apply and to get everything just wasn't there. And I was just like, look, I'm super sorry. I appreciate all your help. But I found out they got their, Florida Credit Union had their stuff ready to go. And
well, that just shows you too, in the very simplistic, grand scheme of things of business, right? You either have it together when something like this happens or you don't. You've got to figure it out or you don't figure it out. And that's okay. But, there was plenty of banks that did figure it out, and that's what helped.
The Banks of America, the Chases, they were catering to their very, very, very large clients.
Yes.
and the Lang Jewelers and the dance studios, and they just didn't have the infrastructure to handle that. And I'm not so sure whether they just didn't want to help or just simply couldn't.
Physically couldn't.
They just didn't have.
I think that's an important lesson, right? I mean, when even looking at business as a whole, you when you start comparing the little guys to the big, like corporate America, it's like you have the ability to adapt quicker. You have the ability to be flexible.
You have to be a master of change.
And here we are seeing that firsthand with a lot of the local credit unions, local banks, right? So it's like that was huge. How do you guys think that we did at how well, or what grade would you give us as a community, as a city? Just kind of super interested into hearing your thoughts on that, because one of the, we talked about how well the chamber did right out the gate, right? Like I thought that
especially the dissemination of news and everything, or
the communication from the Chamber of Commerce was spot on, in my opinion. Like it was, really well done. It was. I felt like it was almost hourly. It was at least 3 times a day. It was like,
I'm sorry,
boom,
but I agree, because given that their events are based like primarily on social, physical, in-person events, and they couldn't have those anymore, they were totally like shifting their thing to make it work. Like they were, doing the online stuff, and they were trying to do like online events. And so, I could totally like talk up the chamber for real for a little bit. Yeah.
Anybody want to chime in on like how well we did as a community, though, from a city standpoint, or?
Yeah, I think, city of Gainesville in general and the community is super, philanthropic and giving, even way prior to the pandemic. We're a community that cares about each other, and I think it really came out during the pandemic. I mean, that didn't change. I think, there were just some great stories about, people doing everything they possibly could to help each other out, the chamber being one of the shining stars of that. And so it makes you proud to live here and be a part of this community. So
I agree.
I know people that I don't think ever really did takeout, ever. And they did take out every single night, specifically because they wanted to help.
GNV.
Seriously, I mean,
truly.
Especially there's where I'm at in Tioga. There's quite a few restaurants in there, and that's sort of a very close knit community, the whole town of Tioga, and I'm tied in with a lot of these people, and they specifically were ordering takeout to help, just for that reason. It's just as easy to stay home and cook your own meals, but let me tell you, I saw a huge amount of support in that perspective for the restaurants.
Very much.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, my dad works in the restaurant industry, so when all of this happened, it was like, okay, what are we gonna do? Kind of scary, but he really helped to focus and adapt on that takeout thing, and his restaurants have seen so much growth. And Dragonfly's a big one with their all of their takeout alcoholic beverages and things like that. That's just been huge, and I definitely think we ate out a lot, but by us eating out, it helps the restaurants, helps the community, and then helps at the end of the day put food on my table at home. So
I was trying to buy as many gift cards as I possibly could,
That's
client
awesome.
gifts and different things. I was just like, hey, I'm buying. That's going to be the gift this year, to just try to front these restaurants the money.
Well, even if there was people that didn't feel comfortable going to even taking takeout, but going to a restaurant or taking takeout, you could buy a gift card, and then a couple months from now you could use it, and that was great. And I feel like a lot of restaurants, I will name drop Linda Vista because I love that place. It's right next to my dance studio. But the Mexican restaurant I've never seen so many people on Facebook, on Gainesville Word of Mouth, or whatever platforms you use, saying, listen, I just got a gallon of margarita.
Gallon.
I got a gallon jug of margarita from Linda Vista, and I got some enchiladas, and dinner's done, and I am excited. It just brought a lot of positivity during a time. Right. But it brought a lot of joy and positivity to a time where usually restaurants are just you go out to eat, whatever. This was a highlight of quarantine,
I feel like people really made it an experience as well. You go out to eat, and you go out to eat with your family, but instead they're doing the takeout, and they're still making it an experience with their family.
And more people are sharing it online.
Exactly.
And saying we didn't eat here, but this restaurant did this, and this was awesome. So that was really cool.
I have it on good authority from some servers and people like that people are tipping extraordinarily well.
Yeah.
Like 50 to 100% on
And they
deliveries
should.
and meals.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm one of my employees works at a restaurant as well as a second job, and some of the stories she tells me, it's crazy how much people are tipping.
People are very generous
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Well, hard times bring out the good in a lot of people, and I've been really pleased with what I've seen as far as, times are tough, and people start to crack in tough times, and I don't know if it's just a Gainesville thing, but I've been really, really happy with the way people, you got, like, I went to Home Depot, recently, and the nicest guy helped me there. I've never had good customer service anywhere in my life, right? I just have noticed that people are just going the extra mile. We're doing it. We do it. I do it. I hold door. I'm being extra nice, and I'm not the nicest guy in the world, but I'm definitely doing that, and I see that elsewhere. People hold doors for you, just the little things.
But it definitely spreads.
It does. Yeah.
It really does.
It does.
Do you think that still happens? Because I feel like it was such a honeymoon period where everybody was super nice for so long, and it lasted for a while.
Yeah.
And then it kind of got fatigued with it, and everybody just went the other way.
I think you might be right. I'm kind of seeing a slide. Traffic, the way people are driving. I even had an experience coming here today. I was like, really, man? Like, okay, but we're heading to the holidays.
Was it a scooter?
No, that would have been road pizza because I was driving 2500 HD. But seriously, maybe I think with going into the holidays, and then of course you got the political stress.
Right.
That's
I think that was a
driving
huge part of it.
everyone crazy. It doesn't matter which side you're on. It's stressful, and hopefully, again, 2021, baby, come on.
Everything's going to change.
I ordered Shannon a 2020 dumpster fire ornament.
Saw that.
Super excited to give it to her.
I saw the coolest thing I don't do a lot of Facebooking, but I saw the coolest picture today. It was someone's front porch, and it was a Santa Claus, a lit up Santa Claus, and they had taken a piece of wire with lights, and Santa was peeing on a 2020 sign. And I actually shared it. And I haven't shared anything on Facebook in probably.
That was it. You're definitely sharing that.
Year. I'm like, I even said this one's worth sharing.
Yeah.
I seriously don't. If it's not business related, the only reason I'm even still on Facebook is for business, really. But
Sure.
I will tell you, I saw that and I was like, nailed it. Whoever did that deserve an award.
Kind of going back to the charity thing, like real quick, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but like Alachua County is, I think, the most charitable county in the state of Florida. If it's not, it's definitely up there.
it, yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me.
But yeah, like I had heard that and I was like, oh, that's really awesome. So, yeah, I don't know. That was just something that crossed my mind while you guys were talking about that, and because I've definitely seen the tipping and stuff and that kind of stuff go up as well. So that's pretty awesome.
So before, I don't want to end on this note, but I think on the topic of COVID, we'd be a little bit remiss to not talk about the human aspect of it too. The fact that there has been a huge loss of quality of life, loss of life for some people. I'm curious if anybody has personally been affected by it. Not it was just somebody testing positive or anything like that, but had a severe case or any deaths or anything like that.
Yeah, I haven't had any deaths or any a serious case, but I have multiple family members that have had it. They're young and healthy and weathered the storm relatively easily, but it's scary though, for sure. I mean, because they're in contact with elderly people in or we're trying to keep them away from elderly people in our families. So it's something we're very, very sensitive to.
For sure. Anybody else?
No.
Just kidding.
Same circumstance. Just they've weathered the storm. Like it's gone through the family and they're okay.
I think there's been some bad things happen to people that they didn't actually catch COVID, but COVID and the whole situation has led them. I have friends that are in law enforcement and community support. Suicide is an epidemic right now.
Absolutely.
I personally had a very close family member commit suicide 2 weeks ago. She was 30 with 2 young children and a wonderful husband. And from the outside looking in, everybody thought their lives were perfect.
Damn.
And I can tell you that just based on observations, I think COVID had a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. She had other issues, depression and stuff. But I can tell you depression, and if you don't mind me just plugging this for a second, if you know anybody that has depression, most people don't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Make them talk about it, because people are really suffering depression right now. It's just one of those dirty little secrets that nobody wants to, especially if it's you. If you don't want to go out and tell everybody, oh, I'm depressed and I'm on drugs and I feel like I'm going to kill myself. People are going to talk about that. But that's a real problem right now. I mean, yes, people are dying of COVID, but people are dying of COVID-related issues. Yeah. And even if they're not actually dying or whatever, it is ruining people's lives. Mm-hmm. And that, when you talk about community support, family support, if you know anybody that's got any kind of issues like that, even a business owner, a business owner, people go, oh, I'm so sorry they lost their business. It could go much, much deeper than that, because especially if we are small business owners, we know your small business identity is your life. Yep. You have blood, sweat, and tears in that. And if you lose it, especially at no fault of your own, because a lot of people that are losing their businesses right now, people can say, oh, well, they weren't a very good business owner. Oh, they didn't say, I read this stuff on the internet and it really ticks me off. People say, well, you know what? If you're a business and you can't survive 3 months without income, that you screwed up. You should have already. That's crap. And so as a community, and I haven't seen a lot of that, but if you know anybody that's suffering in any way like that, you got to reach out and try to help them in any way you can, even if it's just talking to them or taking them out for a cup of coffee, just being there for them, because what happened to my family member really hit home with my wife and I and my daughter. And
super sorry to hear that, man.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that, and it was terrible, but it happened. And what I can tell you is, you look for the silver lining of everything, is it's really opened my eyes. And like my brother and his wife, it was my brother's daughter, they're starting a foundation for depression, because they've realized that and you start really researching it. It's an epidemic right now. I mean, we have a pandemic, but we have an epidemic of other things. And if we don't address that, we're going to have some serious problems upcoming.
It's one of the reasons why I know we kind of joke about it a lot, about me crying on the bathroom floor. Right. You know what I mean? Like, right. We kind of poke fun at it, but it's the truth. It kind of goes back to that, in terms of entrepreneurship. Like, everybody knows that being an entrepreneur is extremely lonely, and it has led to many cries on the bathroom floor in the corner.
Sometimes joking about it is therapeutic too. I mean, like, that's part of it.
Right. I just want to make it like, I'm not making light of it. Like, it's definitely, I am now. It's like, man, like, because I look hindsight, I'm like, man, like we got through that, and that kind of stuff. But there's been plenty of those moments, and when you look at a year like 2020, it's very easy to feel even more isolated. Yeah. Right? It's because, like, we are alone. I mean, whatever your perspective is of a gathering of people, here for this podcast, like, I'm just being straight up. I genuinely need this. And I mean, we've been very proactive about, like, sending messaging saying, hey, if you've been exposed to anybody with COVID, if you know you've had it, or if you have a fever, if you're not comfortable, please don't come. When you come in, we want to be as spread out as possible, but we want to do this in studio, in person. And the truth is, like, as an entrepreneur, like, I need it, and I don't know, like, selfishly, like, I feel very, almost selfish saying that, but like, this human connection I've been craving for so long, because in the 2020 world, it's been very isolated, and so I could totally see where things like depression have gone through the roof. And you're not selfish,
because that's why you do what you do, right? So when I teach dance to children, I have to teach them in person. Mm-hmm. So I totally relate with that. And given this, like, pandemic, and, like, add that whole other, like, echelon, that whole other layer to things, it just adds, like, it really does add, like, a dark cloud to, like, wait, what if I'm never able to do this again? Or what if this is never the same again? Or what if this is never going to happen again? So I can totally, like, understand where someone's coming from when it comes to that. And I just, I feel very saddened by someone who is already struggling with depression or struggling with anxiety, and then to add that top tier onto it is just, that's too much. That's too much.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's important to have as many voices about this whole thing as possible, and that's why we had each of you on here. But I thank you for sharing that, because that is part of the story, and I know it's not super fun to talk about, but we do talk about the economic importance a lot, and a lot of times we use humor to get through things. But I definitely think it's important to at least touch on that there's a serious aspect of it, and maybe many of our listeners have had more personal encounters with this, and so I just kind of wanted to address that, and it's tough for those reasons, but I just want to kind of make it clear we're not making light of any of that, and I think, Matt, great plug, you just check in with your friends and family, because depression is a silent killer, and sometimes what's on the surface it is just that. It's just what's on the surface. And around the holidays, I think they usually spikes there too. It's just really important time to just check in with everybody, and know that that's a thing, and that we'll all try to get through this together,
Yeah. I mean, even before the podcast, like Mary and I were talking about social media and that kind of thing. I mean, I wouldn't say like I've been depressed in 2020, but I've definitely had people reach out to me and be like, yo, you're not the same person I knew in 2018. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of brought an awareness to, and a lot of it has had to do, like, dude, I've just been in here in my whole, like, grinding, like, how the same question, like, how am I going to get us through this? How am I going to get us through this? How am I going to get us through this? Right.
Absolutely.
And like, that's been repeating. So, I mean, a lot of people have said, dude, like, I don't see you on social media as much. I haven't seen as much content coming from you besides the podcast, of course, which has been pretty consistent, and it's been a lot of that. It's just like, dude, I'm trying to make sure that our company can prevail and get through this mess, so. Yeah.
I also think there's a fatigue there too, and sometimes you need to do that inventory yourself. If it's not bringing you joy, right, you need to kind of take a step out. And I think especially with the political climate and everything that was happening, it can get real toxic real quick if you're not in that mindset. So being aware enough to take a step out and just kind of remove yourself to recharge or whatever you need to do, take a break, delete the account, do whatever you got to do, is important to just kind of stay aware.
It's good.
But,
and I have to say, it's really important to reach out to the people that might not necessarily be affected physically by COVID, but like as you mentioned, and as you're mentioning, it's really important to there's a lot of like branches to this tree, there's a lot of veins that go with this, and we need to make sure that we're reaching out to people, in contact with people, in contact with each other, and just like keeping each other going when it comes to stuff like this, because it's not just this virus that's shutting down. We're here today because we have small businesses, and we're trying to keep those open and going and things like that, and we're not the only people, obviously. Like there's millions of us, so it's important to remember that like this whole pandemic is not just affecting us physically because of the virus. It's affecting us physically and mentally because of what it's done to our livelihood and our businesses.
That's what I love about the Gainesville community too, and especially the business community. And that's why I think it's super important to be networked and kind of in, whether it's through the chamber, through other, BNI or whatever, like wherever those networks are for you. Like it's been great, because the number of one-to-one, the number of one-to-ones that I've had in this room at 5:45 after hours, where it's just like, this is a big office, plenty of space. It's like, hey, like, just talking through business, and even texting and reaching out. Like I know I texted you at one point, like, hey, just if I want to get together, like that is so has just been so incredibly important to get through these times, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
We need to start wrapping up in just a little bit, but before we do, I have a couple more questions. And what's the biggest lesson for you personally in a COVID 2020, or in 2020 in general? There's been a lot of lessons this year. It's been a crazy year, but what's been the biggest lesson for you?
For me, it's been don't sweat the small stuff. Really, really focus on, and this is a byproduct of COVID. And I think a lot of people really are, like, they're realizing what's really important in their life. Me personally, I never gave it much thought. I was just ricocheting from thing to thing and just doing everything and, being all over social media and doing everything, just really just whatever popped up in front of me. It was like whack-a-mole. I literally have I find myself on a daily basis saying, you know what, that doesn't matter. I don't need to deal with that. I'm not even going to respond to that. It's irrelevant. I'm like trying to, from 100 things that I'm focusing on in a day, maybe it's down to like 5 or 10. It's my family. Number one is my family, my business, my relationships, because business is not just about success, but it's about relationships. If you build the right relationships, then you're going to be successful. And so for me, it's just really focusing on what's important. And I know that's a cliche. I've heard it 100 times, but it is absolutely 100% true for me. And
that's good, man.
It's just, for me, that's it.
I love it.
Everything he said. And be flexible. Be flexible. That could be...
Should be easier for easy for answer.
Right? Like, let me just do
read my mind.
Did I?
Yeah.
That was like a kind of pun thing.
Yeah,
there.
of course.
I know. It's actually like a running joke with my dancers. I'm like, just, you got to be more flexible. And they're like, we know. Like, we're trying. We're trying, Miss Mary God, But no, it's true. Like, mental, physical, like, just be more flexible. And I know for a fact before all of this happened, I wasn't as flexible mentally. I was very driven and very set on this is what has to happen, when, where, how, who, why, And I truly think, like, going back to the kids, and not to be like, emotional, but going back to learning from the kids and how resilient they are and how flexible they are mentally, I've learned a lot from them. And I think that COVID has taught me, like, just be flexible with life, with your personal life, with your families, with your friends, but then also with your businesses, for sure. Flexible.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I'd say, your life can change faster than you'd ever imagine. And, don't take it for granted. You can, no, I don't think anybody really saw this coming. So definitely just don't take life for granted, and don't take your business for granted, and, celebrate the good times, but prepare for the bad times. And that's what I would get out of it.
That's good.
I would say just live in the moment. I think for me, like, being in my college years, like, if I have an opportunity to do something, I have to, like, really think about it and, like, really consider doing it, because I don't get these years back, and you never know when, I'll come back from spring break and haven't gone back since, kind of thing. So just live in the moment. Don't take anything for granted, for sure.
It's good.
That master class on empathy, like, I think we needed it in a lot of ways, and we kind of talked about how there's maybe that honeymoon period, and it's sad to see it go, but, like, I think too often we've lost the ability to put ourselves in other people's shoes and to give people the benefit of the doubt, and to have that kind of reset to where, for at least a moment, we did that, and we did that well. We were considerate. We let people into traffic. We were, championing these other businesses that had nothing to do with us. We were maybe altruistic, like that, to have those empathetic moments and to really, kind of be the best humans, I think was a lesson that, we as society probably needed, but that I definitely, embraced and enjoyed, and would like to see that stay.
Yeah, that's good. I think for me, it was very much just being more prepared for the unknown, whether, I've always been this way. I don't like to rely on anybody for anything. I
wish I would have known that.
I want to rely on Jesus and my hard work. And and so it's like,
I still think I'm third on that list, but
yeah, you're third. I definitely put a lot of. That's a good place for you to think. I put a lot of trust in you, bro. Right. But when I look at, I I don't want to be in a position where I have to count on the government to give me PPP money.
Heck no.
I don't ever want to be there again.
Or in some ways, the students to give us business,
Yes,
something
exactly.
like that too.
Like I want to have, whether it's more reserves, I want to be better prepared in the future. And it sparked a lot. Like one of the biggest things, like I had as one of my goals for 2020, one of my goals was to pay 50% of my personal debt off. That was at the beginning of the year, and here at the end of the year, we paid 100% of that off.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So and a lot of that came, like, I don't know if that would have happened if it weren't for 2020, because 2020, like COVID, like all this like sparked this thing where I was like, I'm gonna get this done. Like this is ridiculous. Like I don't want to owe anybody anything ever.
Got that Ramsey Gazelle intense.
Yeah, I did. It was super intense.
And you can only control so much, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest lesson for me. What's the number one thing that you discovered about yourself this year?
I have to go back to my roots. I think, it really made me open my eyes to like what makes me me. And sewing is definitely that. And being able to, make masks during the pandemic, it's like, okay.
Which we didn't touch in this episode, but you had came on another episode before where you were making a bunch of masks.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think, I learned how to sew in elementary school, and that's who I am. Like being able to give back to the community, and because of my hustle and bustle in life and always, not stopping to take a break for anything, that's definitely who I am. But this really forced me to take a step back and really look and say, like, okay, what are we doing? Why, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And how can you give back to the community? And that's exactly what COVID did for me. And that was
awesome.
A huge blessing for me, is being able to make over 1,500 masks. So
wow.
Nice.
It's awesome. Thanks for doing that. That's amazing.
So I think for me, it was just realizing that I could be happy with the way things are, and I didn't have to continue to try to, chase the dollar all the time. Mm-hmm. I've been lucky this year, but I just kind of thought it was always going to be about, getting rich and getting better that way. But I learned this year that, I'm actually pretty happy with the way things are. And I guess in sort of a weird way, I'm learning to love more. If that's, I'm not sure that's coming out right, but I'm taking a lot more time to just look inside myself and the way I look at the world. I think the world is a pretty effed up place, but what some of the things we talked about tonight, the community and people, I'm just starting to give, I guess I'm giving people just a lot more credit than I did before. I never really thought about that. It was just hard driven focus to be successful. And I guess this kind of sounds kind of cheesy, but I learned to love myself a little bit more, as opposed to never thinking about self. So
I love it. It's awesome.
All right. Well, that was great.
Sorry, Mary. Mary, we're so sorry they have to follow Matt every time.
How old are you? 19.
Matt's getting all deep.
I wish.
Live in the moment. That's what I want to do.
I wish at 19 I were able to have the same capacity that she has.
Absolutely.
thank you.
As far as like her mindset and, just moving forward and like, I need to take a step back and maybe COVID helped with all of that,
It definitely did.
Right? Like normal 19-year-olds might not say like, I need to really take a step back and like think about what I'm doing, but
Well, my parents tell me that all the time. They're like, Sarah, you need to slow down. You need to slow down.
Right.
I'm like, no, like head down, go, go, go.
Yeah.
And I think having to stay home like those first 2 weeks, I was like, oh my gosh, anything can be taken away like that. And
I think when I was
It's huge.
19, I think I put my head down until I was 25, 26, 27. I mean, I don't really know when I stopped, but I know that to answer your question, Collin, self-care, which is like the exact, like it just goes kind of what she was saying, which is it's interesting to learn as like I'm 36, learning from someone that's 19. You just need to slow down. You just figure out what you're passionate about whatever. And, being an entrepreneur, you're super passionate, and that's why you start what you do, and you do what you love, and, you make a business and you make a life and a career out of something. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I learned with self-care was, like doing a face mask. Like, I know there's mostly men in this room, but you can feel me, like doing a face mask, like taking a bath and going for a run, and just like having something for yourself each day that has nothing to do with your career is huge. And it sounds so minimal, but coming from someone like me, like it's a huge change. It's a huge shift in what I was doing day to day, and that's what I learned for sure from this whole thing.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna hint on the self-care aspect too. It's not a positive thing, but I realized how much of a workaholic I was, and that's not the most important thing in life. To kind of reiterate what Matt was saying too, a lot more important things than working yourself to death. So, that I guess that's a very positive thing that came out of it for me was I could, like I said before, reset, reevaluate my priorities, and so far it's been good. I feel like I'm much more balanced in life. I'm still working very, very hard, but a lot more joy out of some of the other aspects of my life than I was getting pre-COVID. So
that's great.
It's definitely a theme because I jotted down that if I'm well fed and not tired, I'm at my best. And I think that's just kind of an ode to how things were before, where if I'd find myself that workaholic, 100% devoted to my work, and maybe that didn't make me the best person to Michael. It didn't make me the best boyfriend. It didn't make me the best son to my parents or anything like that. And that having that reset and focusing, getting more rest and eating 2 meals a day and not half of a meal a day, if that, which is what was normal for me, actually was important, and not
Which
just.
meal do you skip now? Lunch?
No, I actually don't. I eat a light breakfast and I eat lunch and I have dinner. So I'm rocking 3 meals a day.
You're still pretty skinny.
And with right, it's because I go to the gym at 6 a.m. every morning. And Miranda makes sure they have dessert too. So like that's good. But that's important. And I'd also say something that I learned is that if you ever listen to NPR, that the shortages that we've had throughout this entire epidemic have been toilet paper, it's been hand sanitizer, it's been yeast, and now chess sets. And a lot of that has to do with the Queen's Gambit, the show on Netflix. If you watch
show.
But
home workout equipment.
Yeah, right. So it's like as long as you have TP, bread, and chess, it like you actually have all the elements of happiness right there for you. So.
But can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Why is it that was so important? And so I mean, maybe that's like a deep question.
The TP?
No, just like in general, like why was work, like working, like you said, like work to the bone? That was our life. Why is that? And then so suddenly, because of this, it's completely opposite.
Yeah.
I think entrepreneurs are just driven to the core to be successful, and it's not easy. I think it's a trait of being even an unsuccessful entrepreneur. You're driven that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it in this room for sure.
And I think for me, like my parents like want to do the best for me and my brother, and so they're constantly like working to set that example for us, and working their hardest to give us a life that we love, and I think that's huge too. I mean, they're not entrepreneurs, but still hard workers for sure.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs maybe slept through the econ lesson on the law of diminishing returns, where it's just like you realize that you could be working at 20% capacity, but there's still go. And if you give yourself that recharge to get back up to 100%, you might actually be a lot more productive.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, mine's a little bit of everybody's. But the one thing that I've consistently said this entire year was that at some point, whether it's 2025, 2030, 2035, we're going to look back to this year and we're going to go, we were so much better. Like, I am who I am today because of that year. And I genuinely believe that. Like, I'm a very spiritual person, and I look at that, I'm like, man, like, this is all part of the plan. This is like God wanted me to go through this, and I know that this is preparation for something that's going to happen later. And these are the character defining moments. These are the moments that make us who we become, and how well we respond to these type of situations, and the lessons that we learn through this. I definitely believe that I'm going to be looking back and saying 2020 was the best year of my entire life. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like it now, but I genuinely believe that. And so that's what it is for me. And I look at how much, even like the hustle culture, like that, like I've definitely been that guy. I've been like, go, 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 go. Definitely that person. And some of the things I learned about myself were very much that, I'm a dreamer, man. I'm a dreamer. I am a visionary. I can see what this platform, I tell people all the time, what New Scooters for Less did for the University of Florida, this will do for the city of Gainesville, and I can see that in my future. And so I get so attached, and then I realize the things that I'm not good at. I'm a terrible manager. I really don't want to manage people. I've talked about I really don't want to manage people. Like, I want to be everybody's friend. I want to be like, yo, dude, like, how are you doing getting to your goals? Right. I don't want to be the guy that's like, why didn't your ass come to work on time this morning? Like I hate being that guy. I hate being the manager. I hate holding people accountable. But I'm definitely a visionary, a dreamer, a leader, just not a manager. I think it took me 17 years to really figure that out. And sometimes, and this kind of goes back to Lauren Douglas's episode, is like I definitely feel like I don't dream big enough. That was something that's come up, is that I don't dream big enough. I limit myself, and I refuse to do so. Going into 2021, limitless, baby.
So would that be your biggest goal for 2021? Yep.
Definitely my biggest goal is to set aside a lot of those limiting beliefs and just to go big and to stay extremely focused, be more intentional. I read a book this year that really rocked me, which was Gary Keller's, and I think he co-authored it with somebody, but it's called The One Thing. It talks about like you're intentional about that first domino, and the next it's going to knock over a domino twice its size, right? And then that one's going to knock over a domino that's twice its size, and being very intentional about those moves is something that I'm extremely passionate about as we head into 2021.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sarah,
can I flip that script? I'm sorry.
I'm nervous when somebody wants to flip the script.
I love it. I'm here for it.
But everything you're saying, like, if I were to flip the script, and I should take my own advice, don't get me wrong, but everything you're saying, like, if you were to look back 5 years from now, 5 years before this, isn't that the reason you're so successful right now? Is because the way that you think? You see what I'm saying? The way that you're thinking and you're dreaming, and you don't dream big enough, and you don't do this and you don't that. When you think about it, that's what it takes. That's the recipe that it takes to get through a pandemic. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, not trying to get too emotional, but I just feel like if you can think beyond what's happening right now, you may say you're limiting yourself, but you're really not. You're actually you're doing okay. You're telling yourself this is what's going to happen by 2025, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't mean to, you know what I'm saying?
I think so.
I think in some ways you can say, if I can get through this year, then I can get through anything. So maybe I need to have a bigger target. I need to set.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is I feel like you're limiting yourself in saying that, this is 2020 and 2021 is going to be even better. But really, you've survived. You've made it work. And I've made it work. And he's made it work. And he's had his best year ever. And, I don't know. I just...
Yeah, but I think that just kind of goes back to our roots. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs are a special breed of people.
Right. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, they're a special breed of people. They have that grit. They have in March when this thing started going down, I knew we were going to get through it. Mm-hmm. Because I was I'm going to get us through this.
Yeah.
I'm going to, I'll carry this weight. I will do everything that's necessary to get us through it. Mm-hmm. And I think you just have to have that mindset and that grit mm-hmm. to make it happen no matter what, and this group definitely has that.
You have to be one to know what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'm not putting it into words.
A lot of people I know that are not entrepreneurs just won't ever get it.
Yeah.
And I do know a lot of them, birds of a feather. Most of my closest friends are business owners. Yeah. And, I don't hang out with too many people that are 9-to-5 corporate type people, almost because I can't stand it, how they can just shut it off at 5 in the afternoon. And I'm at midnight still dealing with, it never stops with me. Yeah. And I think being an entrepreneur and being in a room full of other entrepreneurs, you just get it. We all get it.
Right.
Without even articulating it, we just get it. And you're gonna get it. Especially after tonight.
Sarah already gets
I think she already gets it.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
I mean, I don't know if we've explained this on the podcast. I straight up recruited Sarah.
Yeah.
Because I recognized it early on. I mean, I'd seen that post on LinkedIn about you making masks. I think it was highlighted by the business school.
Warrington did an article.
Okay, Warrington did an article. I saw it. I was like, oh, this is really great. We were doing the coronavirus sessions of the podcast. I was like, hey, I reached out to you. Would you guys like to be on the podcast? Let's talk about this.
I was freaking out I was so excited.
And then and then I was like, and then from that moment I was like, oh, this girl has it. I was like, you need to come work with us. And that was it.
How long have you worked here?
Since
that time, it was March.
Well, no.
April.
Well,
April.
No. There's no.
I don't know.
I think June.
Is when you started.
Here.
I don't know.
I don't know. You recruited me early on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've been great.
Thank you.
I definitely. She's for hire. Any businesses out there? Well, you're sophomore.
Yeah.
So she will be for hire in the future. But no, you've done incredible. So before we wrap up, let's definitely go around the room, give your social media handles or websites or whatever you want. Where can our audience connect with you guys?
You want me to start?
Yeah, if they want to hire you, Sarah.
I think just my best would be my LinkedIn. It's just the normal, I don't know what it is. It's Sarah-Lentz. I don't know anything before. LinkedIn.com. Yeah, all that. Sarah-Lentz with an H. Lentz.
Cool.
It's easy for me. It's Lang Jewelers after everything. Just hashtag Lang Jewelers, whatever. It's Lang Jewelers everywhere.
LangJewelers.com.
Yep. LangJewelers.com is our our website where you can shop online.
Awesome.
But yeah, we're easy to find.
Mine's easy too. Just Independent Dance Studio. I have to say dance because people spell check does independence. But independentstudio.com, and then any social media handle just has Independence 352 because there is an Independence somewhere in South America. So I had to add the 352 for Gainesville, which I'm okay with.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, Daniel-Drodos. Twitter, GNV CRE. And we have our team's website, Colliers Gainesville. You can just Google that. And
It's colliers.com/Gaines.
Yeah, see, Collin's better at this.
Heard that a few times.
I've read that a few times in a script.
Yeah, so yeah, thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah.
You can find me on the Instagram at Michael Brian Dees.
Yeah,
That's
boy.
MichaelBrianDees. And you can also find my tasty COVID inspirations on my other Instagram handle at the Alligator Pear, whereas all my stuff that I cooked over break and my culinary.
I can't even look at that Instagram account, man, because it makes me so hungry. And my stomach's like growling
Just
now.
puts me to shame.
Hey, and you forgot the cookies today.
I'm sorry. You guys, sincere apology.
We're gonna do this again, I guess.
She'll never forget again. It's been one of those little surprises that she spoils us with. She brings these chocolate chip cookies. Are amazing.
They are the best.
So, man, this has been a lot of fun. And
Where can they reach you at?
Huh?
Where can we reach you at?
At Collin Austin.
At
Instagram,
Calling All the
is
Girls?
fine. That was MySpace a long time ago.
Got it in there again.
Yeah, good job. This has been great. So thank you so much for coming on. I know for everybody who's listening, for those that are struggling through COVID-19, just keep going. Just keep going. We'll get through this. If you need somebody to reach out to me, man. Reach out to us. We'll talk to you. I've been doing so many one-to-ones, and like I said, I need them. I need to talk to a bunch of people. So, but I'm super proud of our community. I'm super proud of just seeing everybody really come together to get through this. And I'm excited for 2021. I'm super optimistic. I definitely think, like I said, we're going to look back at this year and say, man, that was one of the greatest years that ever happened to us. And even if you don't believe that now, I believe that you'll believe that one day. So that's it, right? Many thanks to our team, Allison Madrino, Sarah Lintz. Yeah. Do a little wave. James Leitner with the epic videography and lighting. James, real quick, come over here, bro. It's the end of the year. Come
get on one of your around all the equipment.
Yeah, come get on one of your cameras. I don't know which one. Which one do you want to wait to say?
There you go.
Guys, this guy, we can't say enough great things about him. He makes this happen. He does all the editing, all the shooting, all the lighting. James, thanks so much for all your hard work this year, man.
Thank you.
Love you, bro.
Love you too.
And of course, dude, Michael Dees.
That's right.
Proud to do this with you. And of course, I got to give a special end of year thank you to my incredible wife, Shannon Austin. So this goes out on December 21st. She puts up with my obsession over this podcast and the late nights. Like, we're here right now and we're doing the show. It's our 13th anniversary tomorrow, December 22nd. It's our 13th anniversary, which I think is super fitting because the 2020, 13th year.
Yeah.
So I love you, Shannon. Thanks so much for putting up with us. And Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Thank you so much for supporting us. Can't do it without you. You're the reason we do it. Love you. Have a great holiday. This is the WHOA GNV podcast, the podcast bringing you businesses and individuals that make you go, whoa. We'll see you later. Bye.